At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July Action Meeting. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes. So we have the regular action meeting minutes dated June 28th, 2016, and the board work session special action meeting dated June 14th, 2016. We have the special meeting minutes dated June 14th, 2016, and executive session dated June 14th and 28th, 2016. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Mrs. Seidel. Is there a second? Mrs. Judge. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all. Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Mr. Robbins?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes. Next up is correspondence, and Mrs. Judge has a meeting that she'd like to tell us about.
I just wanted to let everybody know, including the superintendent, that as the legislative alternate for New Jersey school boards, I was invited to meet with Senator Beach, along with the board member from Collingswood, who is a member of the legislative committee with school boards, and the board member from Gibbsboro. It is going to be next Wednesday, August 3rd at 10:30 in the morning, so if there's anything that you want me to bring to this, I suspect it's going to be a half an hour like it was last time, and I talked as much as I could, including walking out the door. So Jonathan Pushman from school boards is also going to be there. And so if there's anything you want me to bring up or attempt to bring up, I will do my best, and I'll report back after that meeting on August 3rd. Thank you.
Kathy, not to put you on the spot, but do you remember what I believe it was 2 topics maybe that you brought up last time? Do you remember what they were?
Unfair funding, Jerry Hill unfair funding, and Senator Beach mentioned that what we need to do is build a school to bring back special ed into the district, and I said we have no money, and we have no money, and I think he heard the third time that we have no money to do that, and he kind of, with his aide, they kind of backtracked a little bit, and the conversation went, it appeared to go better after that suggestion. That's what I recall.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just so that if there's any-
I'm sorry about that. That was very good. You're thinking,
No, I think I remember the other one was, and that is accountability regs for out of school
Out-of-district
placements.
yeah, and then I also mentioned,
Because I'm thinking that if we might want to piggyback on some, any of those issues you brought up
Yeah.
last time.
and I did suggest,
to
on
mention
the way
that.
out the door, as I continued to talk, when his next opponent was walking in, that if we're here, if he ever is voting on anything regarding schools, and he's wondering how it's going to impact schools, we're here, including our superintendent. We're here. Call us. Ask us. Before you vote. That's what I remember.
Okay. Just so when you're pondering this, what might be important for us, as it will probably only be, like you said, a few minutes, 1, maybe 2 items, that maybe piggyback on what you spoke about last time.
Got another one. SWAY's committee on funding, to the extent it comes up, we got to have South Jersey representation, and it's also have to be representation from an underfunded school. I mean, our luck, they put, the board president from Washington Township, on the committee. That kind of thing. And so it's got to be, it's important that South Jersey be included, and that schools who are only 4 members of this committee, but underfunded schools be represented too.
anything else you think between now and next Wednesday, just let me know.
Thank you. Next up, we have the board representative reports, and it looks like Abby is here again by herself, but we're glad you're here, Abby.
Okay. Hello. Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Malash, Mrs. Matlack, and Dr. Dickinson, and board members. To begin with, I'd like to say how excited I am to be one of the chosen students to represent West, along with my fellow classmate, Molly Birch. I also hope all of you are having a great summer and staying cool in this hot week we're having. As the school year is coming closer, sports teams are starting to prepare for the upcoming 2016 season. Both boys and girls soccer are having captains practices and working hard to prepare for preseason, which begins in late August. Football practices have also begun with morning workouts before they prepare to practice in full gear. Cross country has begun to run, girls tennis has been meeting, and girls volleyball is preparing for preseason as well. Most teams are taking a break this week due to the heat. I am one of the senior captains for field hockey, and we are also preparing very hard for the upcoming season. I was able to go to the turf with Mr. Papa and my team, and all I can say is, wow, it is amazing. After a long wait, it felt great to step on the warm turf, and we were all excited for not only the football games, but other sport games in the stadium. All athletes are really appreciative for the turf and the experiences it will provide. Peer Leaders is also preparing to attend Camp Akanikin, where we will build trusting relationships and work on team-building exercises to prepare to welcome the incoming freshmen at orientation. Molly and I will both be attending the camp. And I also have reached out to some of my fellow classmates, and students are beginning summer reading, and the class of 2017 is preparing to enter their senior year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will have our first public discussion. When you come to the microphone, you will have 3 minutes for your remarks. During this first public discussion, you may address anything that's on our agenda this evening.
After you're approved.
Yes.
Okay, we'll revisit this in a moment. That's okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Although I like the eagles.
Although I like the fact that you're eager to talk to us. Okay, so now I will turn it over to Dr. Malash for the superintendent comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. So as we were just sitting and chatting a little while ago, it's July the 26th. Summer is coming to a very, very rapid crescendo for us. 1 month from today, August the 26th, is our first day of new staff orientation. It's a Friday. So we're in the throes of the hiring season. Board members, you see the open and fill report that Ms. Adrian sends to you each week. So you know the hiring that's been going on. We have a number of folks that will be approved on tonight's agenda. We'll ask you to approve. We're trying to finalize some of the rest of. In fact, I had interviews going on up to and including this afternoon for some of the positions. We've hired some really good staff this summer, so I'm very pleased about the crop of new teachers and counselors and support folks that will be joining us. Abby talked about the turf over at High School West. If you have not had a chance to go out and see it, I encourage you to go out and see it. The track surface, as well as the synthetic turf that's been put down, is absolutely beautiful. It's an incredible. It's just incredible. It's going to be an incredible facility that so many of our student athletes, as well as community members, will have the opportunity to benefit from. We've also, if you haven't seen it, visit over at High School East and the work that's going there. You get to see a little of the before the turf is laid down and see what that looks like. It's also kind of amazing to me the amount of dirt, the amount of earth that is moved in order for that to come back to a level surface with the turf that's there. The coaches, the athletes are very excited to get out on the field. They are not out on the field yet practicing. We're still finalizing, as you are aware, of the usage agreement and how we're determining what's going on the fields. But great work has gone on. Kudos to Mr. Carter, who's our Director of Facilities, as well as the men and women of the grounds crew, the maintenance crew, and the cleaners and custodians throughout the district. It's an incredible job to clean the more than 1.7 million square feet of building space we have in the district. That's a lot of space. I don't even know how you even try to fathom 1.7 million square feet. It's a lot of space. and the folks have done a tremendous job. As you are all well aware, over the last couple of weeks, it's hot. It's real hot and humid. The work still has to get done. You know what I mean? There's only a certain amount of time that has to get done. And so I'm very appreciative to the folks in our custodial staff, the buildings and grounds, the maintenance, the men and women who do that on a daily basis. They really do absolutely tremendous work. I'm excited to tell you about a program that Joanne DiGiacomo, so Joanne DiGiacomo is one of the special ed supervisors in the district. Joanne and I are going to be a part of a team of about 6 or 7 people representing the state of New Jersey tomorrow at the Department of Education in Washington. So we will be there with some folks from the Department of Ed, as well as from Middletown, New Jersey, from the school district, and we'll be attending a program called Healthy Students, Promising Futures, launching a learning collaborative to expand access to school-based Medicaid services. So you're aware that we look at semi-funds, the Medicaid-based funds that come into the district. We were part of a pilot this year in Cherry Hill. So a couple of weeks ago, we received an invitation. So Joanne and I, Joanne's going to be meeting me at my house at 4:30 tomorrow morning because we're going to drive down. And she just realized, she said, "You're sure 4:30?" And I said, "I'm sure 4:30." So we'll be at a program that's from 8:30 tomorrow morning until 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon at the Department of Ed in Washington. So I'm very excited about the opportunity for the discussion. There were representatives of school districts, private programs, nutrition, Medicaid, from across the country, as well as the federal government. So we'll be there during the course of the day tomorrow. And I'm excited to be able to introduce, after you do the approval, later on this evening, our candidate to be the new principal at Beck Middle School. So that's where we are. Busy times, but exciting times.
So, Joe, or Dr. Malash, how did we...
People know that's my name. It works out.
How did we fare after the storms on Saturday and last night? How did we do?
Good questions. So right now we're in really good shape after the storms. During the storms, we were up to 5 of our facilities at one time that were without power. The power PSC&G was able to get everything back up and going. Mr. Bart and Mr. Carter involved between the facility side as well as the technology side to make sure that everything is rebooted and up and operational. So everything came back online. The longest time that we had, Johnson was the longest it was without.
Sunday morning.
Okay, that it came back on. You guys were like,
Yeah, they were.
lot of tree damage. Which just, again, as folks are trying to clean the buildings and everything ready, they're at the same time out picking up branches and leaves and up on the roof and, that kind of thing. So, the weather pattern has been interesting for us over the last couple of weeks and certainly doesn't promise to change anytime in the near future. So what do we use to deal with the humidity that's in the building? So we have dehumidifiers that we have deployed in some of our buildings throughout the district. As you know, there's some major work going on right now at High School East in the administrative wing, as well as the water project that's going on in the back of the building. So again, our facilities folks and Ms. Sugars, with her experience in how to deal with moisture in a building, especially during the course of the summer, we've deployed dehumidifiers throughout some of the buildings to run during the course of the weekend when the ACs are not working in order to balance the humidity and the temperature. So very proactive. We're trying to take a proactive approach, which is kind of antithetical to how education normally works, but that's where we are right now. So again, a nice team of folks who are really smart with that stuff to approach it.
Did the generators kick in okay? When the power went out?
They did, yes. And everything that was plugged into them stayed on.
As far as we know.
Now, there's another discussion about what's plugged into them, but that's a whole...
A couple of the new generators aren't online yet.
Right.
But the east generator, the big one, that kicked on.
That's good news.
Yeah.
That is good.
A couple of other updates. The tennis courts are being finished over at High School West, at the West property. If you remember last year, we did the ribbon cutting with the mayor. Some of you folks were able to attend, where they had put the 5th tennis court in, but because of the temperature, they need a sustained temperature in order to put the colored surface down, so that's going on right now. The township is also resurfacing the tennis courts over at Beck Middle School, which is fantastic because they were in desperate need of being done, and they're going to be redoing this week, Tom, the ones over at East. They're just doing a resurface coat
I think
next week over at the tennis courts over at High School East. So they're doing those as well. So again, the relationship that the tennis courts throughout the district belong to the township. We manage and work back and forth with them. So. Sure.
To go back to the fields, do you want to talk a little bit about what we are putting in place as far as having a grand opening or whatever
Sure.
for the fields?
Absolutely. So we'll do a big formal ribbon cutting with the township over at High School East, where the mayor will be there, town council, us, the press, all that kind of stuff that'll occur. We did the groundbreaking over at High School West, when we first did that piece, and we'll do the big ribbon cutting, inviting everybody. Both schools will also do ribbon cuttings at their own school with the opening of the athletic facility and with the initial athletic events that take place. We'll have students there and the student athletes and all that kind of thing to go through. But that'll be formalized once we know the date. Mr. Papa was pretty confident when we saw him the other night, that he knows. And it may be a hockey game, honestly, Abby, is one of the first games that'll be played on the turf over at High School West, and it's an East-West game. But we'll know that by early in August. So my goal was for Wesley, so we can get you the date, so you know ahead of time. East, it's going to be a little bit more playing it by ear to find out when the field is actually ready, and the delay will be the work that has to go on the track around. There's no doubt that the fields will be ready, that the East Field, at least at this point, will be ready for the September 17th opening football game. But it's some of the other games that, still run into question.
Yeah, they are beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move into our action agenda, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Seidel with the C&I agenda.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of non-public school textbooks for 2016-2017 school year. Number 2, approval of the nursing standing orders for the 2016-2017 school year. Number 3, approval of agreement for 2016-2017 school year $17,500 and under. Number 4, resolution approving professional services agreements for the 2016-2017 school year. Number 5, resolution approving riders to service agreements for the 2016-2017 school year. Number 6, approval of FY 2017 IDEA grant application. Number 7, attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2016-2017 school year. And number 8, approval of elementary school supplemental literature book for the 2016-2017 school year. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge? Any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars?
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes to all.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Judge?
I need to abstain on page 6, item 3, the Cooper Health System. Yes to the rest.
Mr. Robbins?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Scarpellino?
Yes to all.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes to all. And next up, we have the BNF agenda. Dr. Dickinson, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, financial reports. Number 2, resolution for the award of transportation. Number 3, resolution for the award of change orders. Number 4, approval of agreement contract for the provision of student residency investigation services. And number 5, acceptance of donations. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge, any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Mr. Robbins?
Abstaining with respect to New Jersey American on the bill list. Yes to the remainder.
Mr. Roth?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino?
Yes to all.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Abstaining with regards to Bancroft NeuroHealth on the bill list. Yes to the remainder.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes to all. Next, we have our HR agenda. Mrs. Judge, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, termination of employment certificated. Number 2, termination of employment non-certificated. Number 3, appointment certificated. Number 4, appointments non-certificated. Number 5, leaves of absence certificated. Number 6, leaves of absence non-certificated. Number 7, assignment salary change certificated. Number 8, assignment salary change non-certificated. Number 9, other compensation certificated. Number 10, other motions. And 2 items to add. We have additions which are on a pink sheet. And I want to remove our one on page 33, and Scott Goldthorpe. May I have a second? Mrs. Seidel. Any questions? Mr. Robbins.
What's the reason for removal?
Finalizing certification discussion with the state.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Robbins?
Yes.
Mr. Roth?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino?
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes to all. Dr. Malash, will you do the honors of introducing us to our appointee?
I will. Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. Mr. Dawson, it's my pleasure if you'd step up to the podium just for a moment. Mr. Sidney Dawson, you just approved as the new principal at Beck Middle School. So I'm thrilled to introduce you to Sidney. We've had the opportunity to spend some time together during the course of this spring as he's gone through the interview process. Sidney is currently an assistant principal at Linwood Middle School in North Brunswick. He has had a very successful career thus far in North Brunswick, both as an administrator, as an assistant principal, as well as a teacher. As we went through the interview process, Sidney did incredibly well at each level of questioning that we did. As I went through the reference checks, I heard incredibly positive things from current superintendents that he's worked for, administrators in the district, people that do grants, people that do the different types of things that he has done. By all accounts, incredibly successful in all the different pieces that he's done. Humble and kind, nice, connected well as he went through with the committee. He and Dr. Campisi and Miss Adrian spent last Monday over at Beck Middle School to meet with some of the staff and certificated, non-certificated students, PTA, as we've done since the spring of 2013. We always take the candidates over to meet the folks within the learning community. Received incredibly positive feedback for the folks who were there. And it was a good experience for he and Dr. Campisi to spend time together as well. He's currently a doctoral student at Seton Hall, is ABD, and expects to finish next spring. Sydney?
Maybe a little ambitious.
That's right. And listen, I keep telling you, as long as you do it faster than 13 years, I think that's you're on a fast track to go through. Sydney is also bilingual, speaks Spanish fluently, reads and writes, has done a lot of great work. So I'm thrilled that Sydney is joining our team, and we'll look for him early in the fall to join us. So, Sydney Dawson.
Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to be here with you, and I tell you, I'm so excited about joining the team here. Great experience, and like Dr. M said, I had the opportunity last week to visit the school and meet with some of the parents and staff members and students there, and I am overwhelmed with how sincere and genuine the enthusiasm for learning he is here in Cherry Hill and in Beck, and I'm thrilled to be a part of that team. So thank you very much for your confidence, and I cannot wait to get to work and get started. Roll it back.
Thank you, and welcome. And now for a change of pace, we have no items on the P&L agenda, which we always have a lot. And we do have an item on the agenda for strategic planning. So hard to believe, but I'm turning it over to Ella to actually move an agenda item.
I don't know. The great state of Cherry Hill, no, I'm sorry. I was watching too much convention. The superintendent recommends and I have the following: approval of board goals 2016-2017. Do I have a second? Mrs. Seidel. Questions? Mrs. Sugars.
Mr. Roth?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mr. Scarpellino? Mrs.
Yes.
Scarpellino. Sorry. Mr. Tomlinson?
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes.
Mr. Robbins,
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack.
Yes. Good job, Elliot. Now we move on to our second public discussion. At this time, you may approach the microphone and speak to any topic. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes for your remarks.
My name is Stan Krantz.
Mr. Krantz, if you would wait until you get to the microphone, please, so that, because we are videotaping this.
Oh, thank you. My name is Stan Krantz.
And just make sure that mic's back on. Just slide that button up.
There we go.
You notice I haven't been here that often. My name is Stan Krantz, 52-year resident in Cherry Hill, also an employee for 35 years. I am here once again to remind you that continuing to do things right rather than do the right thing as it relates to the science program does not benefit our children. The decrease in instructional time in high school science has affected and will continue to affect the program and in turn student growth. The science program used to consist of 168 hours of instruction. I am told current instructional time is 145 hours, and the plan to continue this downward trend to 130 hours is forthcoming. The loss of 38 hours of classroom experience cannot be ameliorated by any practice. My analysis of the performance goals for the 2000-2017 Biology 1A, 1H courses using Bloom's taxonomy demonstrates the consequences. The predominance of lower order thinking skills required of students is conspicuous as noted on the accompanying chart. Notice the prominence of thinking at the lower levels of knowledge, comprehension, and application. And the descriptors will continue to become lower because higher order thinking skills require more classroom time, guided and nurtured by the teacher, not less. Are these the district's new levels for challenge and rigor in science? My intuition tells me that the state science test focuses on lower order thinking skills and not the higher ones. Teaching students to learn to take a test is not the same as helping them get an education. I hear that scheduling biology for freshmen will provide students greater opportunity to take more science courses. I question why would they want to unless the state forces them to do so. Science is a discipline based on learning through the excitement of doing science, participating in higher order thinking skills, rather than wallowing in the passive accumulation of facts discovered by others. This cannot occur without proper time for implementation. What is appealing about our current 20th century courses, titles Chemistry 1 or Physics 2, and their curriculum. These are not as motivating as learning and applying the principles of science and mathematics through higher order thinking skills in courses entitled The Science and Mathematics of Sports and Performance, The Science and Mathematics of Computer Games. You tell me you won't get kids excited. In my mind, the decision to reduce instructional time in high school science is not an educational decision. It is purely a business decision.
Mr. Krantz, I hate to interrupt you, but I'm sorry your 3 minutes are up. We appreciate you handing us your comments
You could
and
afford
sharing
me
your
another minute to
perspective.
finish, but I would hope that you would read the ending.
Thank
Because
you.
the words of Russell Akoff are extremely important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to approach the microphone?
Hello, my name is Shelby Robbins, and that is my father over there. And I live on 103 Charland Circle, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I've lived there for 18 years, and I am 18 years old. Today, my father turns half a century old today, and He chose to spend it with you guys instead of spending it with us. Well, no hurt feelings, but ooh, yeah.
Well, Shelby, I do have to say that we are running the fastest meeting ever, so he will be out of here very soon.
Okay, then I'll take him off your hands. But I'd like to say happy birthday for him, just to something nice to do, because he is here and I'm a nice person. So, okay, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Daddy. Happy birthday to you. Hope I don't embarrass you too much, Dad.
Only a lot. But thank you, and I do apologize for the delay.
No apology necessary. Thank you, Shelby. Is there anybody else who would like to approach the microphone to speak or sing or act or anything? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Scarpelillo and Mr. Roth, thank you very much, and good night, everyone.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't get you the top card. I might have a card. Oh, I'm sure.